Okay, guys, so please don't forget to turn your cameras on. Give you some seconds. And to also rename if you're not with your actual name. So that I can see who's who. Guys, please, your cameras. Okay, well, today and this week, we're going to be working on the listening section as it's programmed by our calendar. Remember, the listening section is the second section of the test. Now, the section consists in basically, you guys will listen to a couple of audio files. You will be hearing different types of content, and then you will be answering questions about the content that is trying to understand or trying to measure your understanding of the content, and basically it. Now, the skills that you guys need for the listening section, I would say, the first one is going to be vocabulary. You need to expand your vocabulary a little bit. We're going to talk about what specific vocabulary you need for the listening section, but in general, you guys need to have vocabulary for one part of the listening, and also vocabulary related to university life in the US, okay? Because you will have a couple of questions that are about university life, the university experience. And when I say university life, I mean university life in America, okay? So that it's a little bit different than in our region. So it's important, for example, to know how university works in other countries. Like maybe one difference would be that students usually live in the same university, right? Students live on campus. So you need to understand a couple of, or you need to learn a couple of new words. Things like, for example, dormitory, dorm, which is basically the students' rooms where they live inside the university. Words like accommodation, maybe meal plans, words related to academic life as well, things like handing in an assignment. I don't know, how you name university teachers, for example. We don't call them teachers, we call them professors. So you need to learn a few new words related to university life on one hand, and also academic vocabulary related to the sciences, to history, literature, because you will have that type of content as well. Okay, guys? So at the end of today's class, I'm going to share with you guys a document containing useful vocabulary, both for the listening, speaking sections, and also for the writing section, to be honest, of the TOEFL test. And I hope that you guys check it out. But in general, my suggestion is to learn and expand your vocabulary by practicing listening and reading. So that means listen to podcasts. I'm also going to share with you guys a couple of podcasts that I found very useful to increase vocabulary. Podcasts related to university life, there are many, and also academic podcasts, like Scientific America, TED Talks. They all help with listening comprehension, your comprehension. You can first read the transcript, or you can play videos with subtitles, and that will help you. That will help you big time. You can maybe change the speeds of the listening materials you have, depending on what it is you need to work on. Some students struggle because of the speed. Maybe they think that the speakers speak too fast. Some students struggle because of vocabulary, because of overall understanding, pronunciation. So everything related to that is just practice. Okay, I'll share with you some material so that you can practice on your own. And second thing that you need to practice and you need to work on is your note-taking strategies. In fact, you guys will have to take notes for the listening section in the TOEFL test. And you need to practice taking notes because it requires something, a specific skill, being able to take notes at a fast speed and also understand and be present in the audio file at the same time. It is a little bit difficult, but again, it's just practice. So practice taking notes. Now, before we start, I also want to say something that is very important, is that when you guys practice the listening section, and when you practice every section in the TOEFL test, actually, make sure that you practice realistically, that you simulate the real test. So those of you guys who are taking the home edition exam, first of all, you need to know that you won't be able to take notes in regular paper, okay? You can't use regular paper when you're taking the home edition. How do you do to take notes? You need to either use a whiteboard, so you can buy yourselves a whiteboard, a small whiteboard, of course, it doesn't have to be anything big, and you have to take your notes with a mark, with a watermark. Or you can also use a transparent sheet cover. You can also use a transparent sheet cover. And basically, these transparent sheet covers, I don't know if you guys have seen them. I'm going to show you guys a picture. But basically, those are these covers that are used for just protecting paper. So you put a paper inside the transparent sheet, and you can write down your notes with a marker, again, a non-permanent marker. Okay, so you have these two options if you guys are taking the test at home. So why am I telling you this? Because it's important that you start practicing as soon as you can, taking your notes in this way, because it's different. Taking notes on paper is one thing. Typing your notes is another thing. And taking notes with a marker on a whiteboard is another thing. So I want you guys to be prepared for when you take the test, and I don't want you to have any surprises. That's for one thing. If you guys take the test in a test center, then not a problem. You can take your notes in normal paper. They will give you the paper and they will give you a pen. So everything is normal. Normal paper and pen. You can never type your notes, so please be careful. I don't want to hear or I don't want to see you guys typing your notes. You can't do that. And practice with background noise, just in case. Because there's a small chance that you're going to be answering the questions while hearing other people. So practice with background noise if you're going to take the test in a test center. Okay, guys, is that okay so far? Any questions before we start with the listening section?
No, thank you.
All right, guys. So as I told you, I'm going to show you guys a picture. These are the transparent sheet protectors or covers that I was telling you about. The ATS allows you to do this, to put a paper inside one of these protectors, and that makes it erasable, right? So you can write with a marker and then use a piece of clothing or anything to erase your notes and write again, okay? So you have those two options if you take the test at home. Okay, guys, so let's start with the listening section. In the listening section, this is the current structure of the listening. You guys will be hearing two different types of content. The first thing is conversations. So these are going to be casual, very easy to understand, I would say, conversations. You actually have two conversations. Each conversation is very short, 3 minutes usually, and each conversation contains 5 questions. So that means that you have a total of 10 questions here. And then you have 3 lectures. Okay, guys, do you guys know what a lecture is? Yes, can anyone please tell me? What's a lecture? It's not a lectura, right? So what is it, Noelia? I think you were about to say something.
Yes, it could be a paper that someone is reading this paper, for example, and we are listening.
Okay, something like that, yes, but they are not gonna necessarily read from something. Basically, a lecture is a class. It's just a university class. Okay, a lecture is the explanation of a topic, not necessarily by reading the topic, but basically just explaining the topic. This is a university class on one of the academic subjects that you can have in university, so something related to the sciences, anthropology, literature. It's a university class where you will be hearing a professor deliver a lecture, so explain a topic, okay? These are a little bit harder because of the vocabulary, because of the length, and some other things. You guys, it's usually 3 to 5 or to even 6 minutes long, and you get 6 questions per lecture. So you have 18 questions here, and that makes a total of 28 questions. I'm sorry, 28 questions in total, right? And you guys have 36 minutes to answer to these 28 questions. To be honest with you guys, you don't have to worry about time. I don't think I've had one student that struggled with time in the listening section. I wouldn't say that time management is a problem here. You get more than 1 minute in average per question. It's almost 1.5 minutes that you get. It's a lot. Because the thing about the listening is you get the question and you either know the answer or you don't. Everything that you have is your notes and your memory. There's nothing else. Like the reading, right? In the reading section, you can go back to the text, you can try to find the answer, read again, read 100 times until you find the answer. You can't do that here. You can only listen to the lectures or conversations once. So believe me, it's not going to take you more than 40 or 30 seconds. So I would say you're good with time. Don't worry about that. Okay, guys? Obviously, that doesn't mean that you can spend more than 5 minutes in a question. Of course not. It's 1 minute tops. Okay? So any questions so far? Okay, guys. So today and tomorrow we're going to be doing conversations. Today we're going to see the theory, and tomorrow we'll be practicing. And Thursday and Friday we'll be doing lectures. Okay? So let's start with conversations. Conversations to me and to many students are the easiest part in the entire test. So take advantage of this. These conversations are always going to be taking place in an American university, ex-American university. And the conversations are between a student from this university and somebody that works for the university, a university employee. Now, this university worker could really be anyone. It could be the professor, it could be a professor, it could be the librarian, it could be the accommodation officer, it could be an academic advisor, it could be anyone really, somebody from the international's office, anybody that works in the university, okay? And what are they gonna be talking about? They will be talking about a problem or a want or a need that the student has. This student here always wants something. The student maybe, for example, maybe the student has a problem with an assignment. Maybe the student doesn't understand an assignment very well. So the student will go see the professor about that and ask for advice. Or maybe the student is unhappy about his or her grades, so they will go see the professor. Maybe the student can't find a book, so they will see the librarian about that. Maybe the student wants to change dorms, so they will go to the accommodation office. Maybe the student wants to change his or her major, so they'll go to academic advisor. Maybe the student wants to schedule different tasks. Maybe the student wants to open a club, join a club. So there are many different things that the student could want or need, and they will go see somebody about that. And this university worker is supposed to help the student with that problem or with that want or that need. The professor is supposed to give the student advice. The librarian is supposed to help the student find the book. The accommodation officer is supposed to guide the student in the process of changing dorms, and so forth. Okay, guys, so they are supposed to help the student, give them advice, give them suggestions, options, solutions, information. Okay, guys? Is that okay so far? Do you have any questions about that? Okay, guys. So as for the question types in the listening, we're honestly not going to spend a lot of time here doing like explaining what each question is like. I just want you to know that there are different types of questions. For the conversations specifically, you will have the main idea, you will have function and purpose, attitude, and detail. Okay, what are these questions? The main idea usually asks for the big ideas in the conversation, like the problem that the student had, the main idea in the conversation, things like that. Obviously, they don't require any notes because you will remember the main ideas. The function and purpose ask you to interpret why somebody says something. Like, why does the professor say this? Why does the student talk about that? So they ask you about the reasons why they say something. So it's about interpreting what they say. Attitude questions ask you about feelings, emotions. So what is the attitude of the professor towards this? What is the student's opinion or how the student feels about something? So again, no notes are needed because it's just about understanding the context, understanding the context beyond the words. And finally, you have detailed questions, which are going to ask you for specific details in the conversation, right? So like, what was the name of the professor? Why did the professor did this? Or for how long is the professor going to be here? Details, you know? So these are the ones that will require your notes. So the reason why I'm telling you this is because, as you guys can see, most of the questions don't require notes. And even detailed questions are not that detailed after all. They ask you for big details that are not that hard to remember. So my suggestion is going to be focus more on understanding and less on taking notes. Don't write a transcript of the conversation because that won't get you anywhere. Focus on understanding. And if you guys are going to take notes, divide the paper or the piece of the paper into two spaces. On one side, you're going to take notes about the student. And on the other one, you'll take notes about the employee. So let's say that the student is having problems finding a book. So the student goes to see the librarian and he's like, hey, I'm sorry, I can't find this history book named, I don't know, something, let's say, I don't know the name, right? But the student mentions a name of the book. So you would write down the name of the book. I can't find it in the third section of the library. So you write down the details. And then the employee, the librarian says, have you already tried looking in the fifth section? And then the student says, yes, I already done that, but it's not there. And maybe the student is desperate because they need to hand down an assignment about the book. So the librarian is like, maybe you can search it in this database, for example. So you're going to go back and forth between the student and the employee and make sure that your notes are organized, you know, that you're not writing everything everywhere. It's a really good idea to divide the information like this so you know who's saying what at the end and you don't get confused. But again, just write down the details. Don't take notes on the big ideas because you will remember them. You guys? Is that clear? Any questions before we look at an example? All right, guys, so let's start practicing. We're going to start by doing an actual past exam from the ETS. It's official from the ETS. So it should be very similar to what you'll have in the real test. It's on their website. So please get ready to take notes, get a piece of paper and a pen. I'm going to play the conversation and then we'll be answering the question.
Listening section directions. The listening section of the TOEFL IBT test.
Listen to a conversation between a student and a professor.
Hi, Professor Mason. Do you have a minute?
Yes, of course, Eric. I think there was something I wanted to talk to you about, too.
Probably my late essay.
Ah, that must have been it. I thought maybe I'd lost it.
No, I'm sorry. Actually, it was my computer that lost it, the first draft of it. And, well, anyway, I finally put it in your mailbox yesterday.
Oh, and I haven't checked the mailbox yet today. Well, I'm glad it's there. I'll read it this weekend.
Well, sorry again. Say, I can send it to you by email, too, if you like.
Great. I'll be interested to see how it all came out.
Right. Now, I just overheard some graduate students talking. Something about a party for Dean Adams?
A retirement party, yes. All students are invited. Wasn't there a notice on the anthropology department's bulletin board?
I don't know, but I wanted to offer to help out with it. You know, whatever you need. Dean Adams, well, I took a few anthropology classes with her, and they were great, inspiring. And, well, I just wanted to pitch in.
Oh, that's very thoughtful of you, Eric, but it'll be pretty low-key. Nothing flashy. That's not her style.
So there's nothing?
No, we'll have coffee and cookies. Maybe a cake, but actually a couple of the administrative assistants are working on that. You could ask them, but I think they've got it covered.
Okay.
Actually, oh, no, never mind.
What is it?
Well, it's nothing to do with the party, and I'm sure there are more exciting ways you could spend your time, but we do need some help with something. We're compiling a database of articles the anthropology faculty has published. There's not much glory in it, but we're looking for someone with some knowledge of anthropology who can enter the articles. I hesitate to mention it, but I don't suppose this is something you would...
No, that sounds kinda cool. I'd like to see what they're writing about.
Wonderful. And there are also some unpublished studies. Did you know Dean Adams did a lot of field research in Indonesia? Most of it hasn't been published yet.
No, like what?
Well, she's really versatile. She just spent several months studying social interactions in Indonesia, and she's been influential in ethnology. Oh, and she's also done work in South America that's closer to biology, especially with speciation.
Not to seem uninformed.
Well, how species form. You know, how two distinct species form from one, like when populations of the same species are isolated from each other and then develop in two different directions and end up as two distinct species.
Interesting.
Yes. And while she was there in South America, she collected a lot of linguistic information and songs. Really fascinating.
Well, I hate to see her leave.
Don't worry, she'll still be around. She's got lots of projects that she's still in the middle of.
Why does the man go to see the professor?
Yes, let's start looking at the question with examples. This is our first question. It's the main idea type. It says, why does the man go to see the professor? What do you guys think?
To handle an assignment.
Okay, to handle an assignment. Yes, do you guys agree? Okay, guys. Well, some things that I could say about this main idea type of question. We're gonna go here. It's also called guess content. So there are two different types of this main idea question. One of them is this one here that asks about the intention or the original reason why the student visited this person. Because it's always the student that goes to see somebody, right? So the first type is going to ask you about why this student went to see this person. Why does the student go to see the professor? Why did the student visit the library? In that case, then what you guys have to do is focus on the student's perspective, what the student wanted, what the student needed, what was the student's problem, right? But there's also a second type that asks you to summarize the entire conversation. They could ask, what are the speakers mainly discussing? In that case, they're not just asking about the problem that the student had or what the student wanted. They are asking about the entire conversation. And in the second case, you guys need to find an option that summarizes everything they talked about. In this case, and the one that we just heard, they talked about 3 different things. Can you guys tell me what those 3 things were?
First of all, ¿me pueden escuchar? Perdón.
Yes, I can hear. So, Adrian, go on, please.
I'm sorry. Yeah. First of all, they were talking about an essay assignment. Secondly, they were talking about party, if I'm not wrong, and the last topic was about another professor that makes an investigation of I think it was about 2 types of tribes in South America. I'm not pretty sure, but that was
Okay. Yes, Adrian, perfect. Thank you so much. That's correct. So yes, initially at first they start talking about the assignment, right? The late assignment. Then they talk about this event, this party, retirement party for Dean Adams. And then they start talking about Dean Adams' research. That's true, but not because they just wanted to talk about Dean Adams' research, but because the professor, asked him, the student, to do something, right? To do a project of entering some articles into the databases, I think, about the research. So yes. Now, out of those 3 things, the assignment, the party, and the project, what was the real reason why the student went to see the professor? Are you guys sure that it was because of the assignment? Option A, to hand in a late assignment. Let's listen to this part again. I want you guys to pay really close attention. The thing is, one would normally expect, it's normal to expect the first or the reason why the student went to see the professor in the beginning of the conversation, right? Because that's how normally things work. I go to see you and I say, hey, I wanted to do this, I wanted to know that, I have this problem. It's normal to expect the intention of the student in the beginning, but that doesn't mean that it's always going to be in the beginning. Take a look at this. We're going to hear this part again.
Listening section.
Hi, Professor Mason. Do you have a minute?
Yes, of course, Eric. I think there was something I wanted to talk to you about, too.
Probably my late essay.
Ah, that must have been it. I thought maybe I'd lost it.
No, I'm sorry. Actually, it was my computer that lost it, the first draft of it. And, well, anyway, I finally put it in your mailbox yesterday.
Oh, and I haven't checked the mailbox yet today. Well, I'm glad it's there. I'll read it this weekend.
Well, sorry again. Say, I can send it to you by email, too, if you like.
Great. I'll be interested to see how it all came out.
Right. Now, I just overheard some graduate students talking. Something about a party for Dean Adams?
A retirement party, yes. All students are invited. Wasn't there a notice on the anthropology department's bulletin board?
I don't know, but I wanted to offer to help out with it. Whatever you need.
Right, so what do you think now? Are you sure that it's option A, to hand in a late assignment?
No,
Then it is?
to volunteer to help organize an event.
So careful, be really careful. They did talk about the late assignment, they did talk about in Adam's current research, but the reason why he went to see the professor wasn't any of those, right? What happened was that he went to see the professor and he says, hey, do you have a minute? And she's like, yes, actually there was something that I wanted to talk to you about. And then they talked about the late assignment. But that's because the professor wanted to talk about that, not because that's what the student originally wanted to discuss. The student wanted to volunteer for the event, right? He says, well, actually now there's this party. I overheard some students talking about it. I wanted to volunteer. So that was his intention, right? To volunteer for this event. Great. Careful. Learn to distinguish between those two different questions. Why does the student go to see the professor versus what was the conversation mainly about? Those are two different questions, right? That could be your first question. Is that okay so far? Do you have any questions? All right, let's go to the next. By the way, you have to first click on next, and then you have to click on OK. Because the thing about the listening is that you can go back. You can never go back. So once you click on next, you need to double check and make sure that you want to go to the next option. So you click on OK again. 2 clicks.
How did the man learn about Dean Adams's retirement?
Maybe he heard other students discussing it.
Okay. Do you guys agree? Do you all agree? So yes, right, he says, I overheard some students talking about a party for Dean Adams. And then the professor's like, yes, a retirement party. Now, careful, another tip that I can give you, this is a detailed question, so to be honest, there's not much that you can do, right? You either remember the answer or you have it in your notes or you don't. Now, one thing that I can say maybe is careful not to get confused between the actual answer to the question, how did the man learn? Because he heard other students discussing it, right? That's how he learned about the party. He heard other students. But look at options. For example, option B is really interesting because this is true information. I don't know if you guys remember, but the professor says it was posted on the bulletin board in the anthropology department. So this is true, but is it answering the question? No, right? It's not, because that wasn't how the student learned about the party. The student learned about the party because he heard other students talking about it. And also, just by reading the options, I want you guys to see the difference between options A and C and options and option B and D. In options A and C, the focus is on him, right? How did he learn about the party? Because he read about it or because he heard about it. But it's different to just say it was posted. Maybe it was posted, but is it how he learned? This option is not answering to the question, right? It's not answering the question of how. How did he learn? He learned by reading it. He learned by listening to something about it. Same thing with option D, right? It's not a way in which he could have learned about the party. And also it doesn't make sense because we know that Dean Adams is retiring, right? So she probably doesn't have classes anymore. So yes, option C. Hold on. Okay, guys, next. Okay.
Why does the professor refuse the man's offer to help with the party?
What do you all think?
She prefers that he spend his time on another project.
Okay. That would be one, and what would the other one be?
It could be the party does not require much preparation.
Okay. What does the rest think?
I think the first is she prefers that he spent his time on another project, and the second reason was two people are already working on it.
Okay. So actually, guys, the answers are two people are already working on it, and the party doesn't require much preparation. So it's interesting because it's like a mix of everything you guys said. Now, for this is another detailed question. Another thing that you guys need to remember, and another tip that I can give you for detailed questions is make sure that the answers that you choose are things that are explicitly said by the speakers. In the previous one, the student explicitly says, I overheard students talking about the party. So it's not like you guys are making drawing a conclusion, right? He said that. Same thing here. You have to choose the options that correspond to what they said explicitly, not to what they suggested, what they implied. In this case, what the woman says is actually it's nothing flashy, it's something low-key, it's just coffee and cookies, right? That's basically option C. It doesn't require much preparation. There's not much to do, nothing flashy. And second, she says, besides, a couple of administrative assistants are already working on the party. You could ask them, but I think they got it covered. So the reasons why she refused the men's offer is because the administrative assistants are already planning the party, and it doesn't require much preparation, right? Because it's nothing flashy, something low key. It's just gonna be a cake, I think, and coffee. So those are the two reasons. Now, as for option B, I can see why you guys would choose option B, because it's true that she wants him to do the project. It is true. But it's different to say that she prefers that he spends his time on this project rather than doing the event. She doesn't explicitly say that, right? She's not like, actually, I don't want you to volunteer in the party. I would prefer that you spend your time doing this project on the technology thing. That's not what she said, right? She offered the project to him after the discussion of the party. It's not like she prefers that he does that instead of the party. It's a separate thing. So the tip here is gonna be don't make any conclusions, don't draw inferences based on what they said. Stick to what they actually said. Okay? Is that okay? Do you have any questions about this? Hey guys, let's move on to the next.
Why does the professor talk about speciation?
What do you guys think? What would you say? If you don't know the answer, guess and move on to the next, right? You can't spend too much time in a question.
Maybe to explain what Dean Adams chose to work on Indonesia.
Okay, maybe. What do you guys think? Do you all agree?
I am between the first and the second response, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure about if I heard ethnology or anthropology. So that's confusing me.
Okay. So actually, none of those are the ones. The actual answer is option D. This is a little more complicated because it's about the details that I will mention later in the conversation. But maybe this is called, let's go here. Okay. Is it? So this is the one. It's called understanding function or dysfunction, and they basically ask you for the purpose of something, the reason why somebody said something, right? Why does the student say this? Why does the professor talk about that? So in that question, what you guys need to remember is that most of the time, there's always going to be big ideas, main ideas, and there's always details as well. And the details, the only thing that the details are doing there is complementing the main ideas. So you need to be able to understand all of the different main ideas in the text. Now, in this case, when they start talking about speciation, and they also talk about the work that Dean Adams has done in Indonesia, they talked about different research that she's done about songs or native songs, things like that. I think this work on speciation was in South America. It wasn't on Indonesia. But it doesn't matter, really. The important thing is that before talking about all of this, what she says is that Dean Adams' work is very versatile, she says. She says, well, actually, Dean Adams' work is very versatile. She's done work in many different areas. And then she starts naming a couple of those areas. She talked about speciation. She talked about her work in Indonesia, about this area in ethnology, I think that she helped develop. So they talk about different things. But the reason why the professor talks about all of those details, including the speciation detail, is because she wants to demonstrate how varied Dean Adams' research has been. That's why she says her work is very versatile. Maybe some tips that I can give you for this question, aside from understanding the main ideas, would be if we were to eliminate a couple of options, we could eliminate option B. Why? Because this wasn't an ethnology or an anthropology class either way. It wasn't like the woman was trying to teach the student about ethnology or to teach the student about research areas. That wasn't the purpose of their conversation, right? They were talking about Dean Adams. They weren't talking about anything else. When they were talking about speciation, they were talking about Dean Adams' work. They weren't talking about anything related to ethnology or anything. That wasn't the main approach or the main focus of the dialogue there. Now, to describe the main focus of the work she needs help with, if you understood what the project is, then you know that isn't it. Because the work that she needs help with is entering the articles into the databases. It's not about speciation, right? It's not related to speciation. So I guess you could maybe narrow it down to options C and D. But if you understood the details, if you caught the details, you know that first of all, this wasn't done in Indonesia, it was in South America. And second, the main idea there wasn't to explain why Dean Adams chose to work on Indonesia. Another thing that I could tell you is when they ask you about the reasons why the professor or the student mentioned specific details like this one, Why does the student mention this specific name, this specific number, that specific idea? The answer is always going to be a big idea. Because as I told you, big ideas are always supported by details. So this is the detail. You have to look for the big idea here. And if we had to choose between options C and D, this is the big idea, right? Option C is very specific, too specific to be the one. Okay, guys? But again, it's just taking notes and understanding those ideas. That does require some practice. Is that okay, guys? Any questions here? All right, let's go to the next.
Listen again to part of the conversation, then answer the question.
There's not much glory in it, but we're looking for someone with some knowledge of anthropology who can enter the articles. I hesitate to mention it, but I don't suppose this is something you would...
Why does the professor say this?
I hesitate to mention it, but I don't suppose this is something you would...
You think?
Probably to ask the man if he will be willing to work on the project.
Right? Yes, do you guys agree? So yes, totally, I agree. To ask the man if he would be willing to work on the project. So it's just a polite way of asking, right? She's like, I hesitate to ask, but I don't suppose that you would be willing to do this. So she's just asking him to do it, right? But very politely, very like giving the student options of rejecting or turning down the project. And if you look at the other options, they could easily be eliminated because we know that she's not doubting the man's qualification. She's not like, I don't think you are qualified, so I want somebody else. She doesn't do that, right? She doesn't ask the man to recommend somebody else for the project. She wants him to do it. We know that from the context. So it's not option D, it's not option A. And she's not apologizing for not offering the project to him because she is offering the project to him. So it's not D either. It's gotta be B. Great. So as you can see, in this type of questions, you're supposed to interpret things that sometimes are not explicitly said in the same way. She's not directly saying, I want you to, or I am asking you if you are willing to do the project. She's saying, I hesitate to ask, but I don't suppose that. So she says something different and you have to interpret that. It doesn't require note-taking, it's just about being logical. And also relating it to the context, right? We know the context. She wants him to do the project. She doesn't want him to recommend somebody. She's not doubting his qualifications, and she is offering the project to him. Right? So those are the 5 questions. What do you guys think? Do you have any questions so far? Okay, guys. So some things you should know about the listening section. Okay. The first thing is that, well, this is actually incorrect. You have about 50 seconds per question. Okay, but it would be ideal if you guys can spend 35 seconds per question. You actually don't need more than that. Now, another thing you need to know is that you can go back to the questions. Once you have clicked on next, you can go back. You can jump around. So that means that if you're in question 1, you can go to question 5, or you can go to question 3, or you can go back to the third or to the first question. You can do that. They go in order one by one. And all the questions are delivered to you after you heard the conversation or the lecture. You know, it's not like you can hear or listen and at the same time answer the questions. You can do that, unfortunately. You can review either. Obviously, right now we were able to review, but that's because we're practicing. But in the test, you won't be able to review. You can't leave blank answers. That means that you can leave a question unanswered. You need to choose an option, even if you have to guess. You can't leave any questions in blank. You only get to listen to the lecture conversation once. It's true that most of the questions are at least 2 out of 5 or 3 out of 5 could be detailed. So take your notes only about the details. Notes are kept mostly in the lectures. Well, and this is for the lectures, not about the conversation. Okay, so those are some things that you need to keep in mind. You can read the transcript either, if you guys are wondering. And that's it. Then everything else is pretty simple, I would say. Try to be logical. In case you don't know the answer to a question, then choose the one that that you feel is more coherent. This makes more sense. Sometimes that's a great strategy, just choosing the one that you think makes more sense. Okay, guys. That's gonna be it for today's session. Tomorrow we're going to be practicing. We're going to be doing as many sets as we can for the conversations only, and on Thursday we'll be looking at the lectures. But tell me, guys, do you really not have any questions, any comments before we go? I told you that I was going to share with you the document with the vocabulary, right? So let me share this with you. I'm going to send you guys this, and I will also be sending you a couple of links where you find really great practice for the listening part. And also, there's one more thing that I need to share with you guys. Hang on a second. Okay, guys. So before or at this in the meantime, you guys will have access to this platform where you can practice everything you want to practice for the TOEFL test. It's called Magoosh. Okay, if you wanna, I'm gonna share with you guys. I'm gonna give you the username and password so that you can use this platform. I am actually gonna send it to you guys now through the WhatsApp chat so that I don't forget and you have it there, not here. So hang on a second. This is 21. Okay, I just shared the email and the password actually. What you guys need to do is go to TOEFL. I'm gonna log out so that you see how it works. It's basically TOEFL. The link is there, I think. Either way is toefl.magoosh.com/login. And basically, if you guys go to that website, open the link, and you enter the email, equipo@ee.com, and you also enter the password that's on your WhatsApp chat. I'm gonna enter it now. It's executive. mayúscula and 2 exclamation marks. So if you do that, then you'll find this on your screen. And basically this is the dashboard. I'm very quickly gonna show this to you guys. You have two very useful things here. The first one is the lessons. If you go here to lessons, you'll find a lot of lessons related to the TOEFL exam, including things related to its structure, like an overview of the test, how the test is scored, the reading, listening, speaking, and writing sections, the different skills that you need. And then section by section, you'll have detailed video classes on everything you need to know for the TOEFL test. It's like a really good explanation of everything, every single question type, every type of content that you get in each section. So it's great material to see, to check out if you guys want to study more. And you also have good material for grammar that is necessary for the TOEFL test. Things related to sentence structure, punctuation, conjunctions, sentences, verb tenses, modal verbs, adverbials, gerunds, infinite phrases, many different things. You guys can check them out if you feel that you're struggling with one of those grammar points. And most importantly, if you go here to practice, you guys can choose if you want to practice something specific, or if you want to have a simulation test, a complete practice test. So let's say that you want to practice what we did today, listening conversations. So you go to custom practice and you can select what you want to practice. So let's say you select the listening section, conversations. You always have to have your question pool in answered in and answered, because everybody's going to be using the same account. So make sure that it's always answered and answered. You can click on how many tasks you want to do. You can give yourself the amount of time you want, and you can do practice mode, where you will have explanations after each question, video explanations, or you can do quiz modes where the explanations will be at the end, after the entire session. And then you start the session and you start practicing. For example, this is going to be a conversation. You can click on the conversation.
Listen to a conversation between a student and her professor.
You hear the conversation, you click on next. And then you start having the questions. Now, you can have the explanations. If you chose practice mode, you will have them here, but I chose quiz mode right now. So they should be in the end. Let me see, I'm going to answer them all so that you see the explanations. Okay. Or you have to an entire quiz, but I can say end quiz and see results. And you have the answers here. It would be this one here. I don't know which one. Okay, to be honest, I don't know how this is working. I think that it's better to use the practice mode if you're gonna practice, because the explanations are after each question. So let's see if we click on practice mode. Okay, so let's see, we choose option B. We submit the answer. And below we have the correct choice and a video explanation on why that answer was correct or incorrect, how we can get to the correct choice. It's a complete video explanation on how to do it. You have sample notes from the text. You have the script. So there's a lot of useful material, and you have related lessons that you can check. So using your notes, the question type, the main idea, and you can use your notes here. So it's really good for practicing every section: reading, speaking, writing, listening. It helps a lot. Okay, guys, I sent you already the username and password for this Magoosh platform. I hope that you use it. So do you guys have questions about that? Okay, guys, awesome. Then now this is gonna be for today's session. Please don't forget today's daily survey before you go. And I will be seeing you all tomorrow in class.
Thank you so much. See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye, guys. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Until tomorrow.
Thank you.